This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
So before starting with the content of the lecture, I want to cover a few points before. So I want to start actually with one that is related to the major projects and how to differentiate between the high risk, high value projects and the non-high risk. So if you go to this link, you are going to find this information. And if you go, these are the guidelines for the business case. So if you download these guidelines, so here you are going to have an explanation about what is high risk, high value projects. Okay, so here is just like a brief representation of what is considered as high value, high risk projects. So here you can see that they have a tool that evaluates the risk. So this is a tool that you can find actually in the web page that is here, the project profile model. And basically, if you go to this link, they are going to ask you a few questions about a lot of different points that includes the business case. So information, general information about the project, general information about the data that is available, about the risk, about the different options that you are considering, about the economics and the finance of those different options. And you are going to answer a few questions and they are going to provide you with the level of risk for that specific project. So you have to take that test first, and then based on that test, they are going to tell you if it's low risk, medium risk, or high risk. And then on the other part is the budget, or the expected, here is the total estimated investment that you are requiring for the project. And here is if it's less than $100 million, and using the tool, it results in a high risk project, it is considered as high risk, high value project. Then if it's between 100 million and 250 million, and if it's above the medium risk, it's considered as high value, high risk. And if it goes above the $250 million, it doesn't really matter if it's considered as low risk, it's going to be considered as high value, high risk project. So here is the guidelines. You can go and have a look at them. It is a lot of questions, and also it includes like a lot of like reasoning behind that to give you an estimate of if it's low risk, high risk, or medium risk. And also you have to consider the budget for the project. Okay, so this is one of the resources that you need to use for your assignment. So have a look at it, and let me know if you have any questions later. So let me start with the lecture. So what we are going to cover today is two main topics that they are related. So the first one is the project appraisal and evaluation. So this is directly linked to the Green Book. So hopefully you are going to understand a little bit better what I am talking about. And it's going to be like a summary of the things that you have to consider when you are developing a business case. So in this case, we are going to still talking about the business case, just a different section of the business case. I'm going to talk about the 5-case model that you saw in the Green Book. And then part of the project appraisal and evaluation is also the options analysis, and that has to do with cost and benefits. And we are going to talk about the economic appraisal and financial appraisal. So what I am expecting from you by the end of the lecture is to understand the process of appraisal and evaluation of different options. So this one is also sometimes called option analysis. In the Green Book, they call it appraisal process. here we are going to call them option analysis, but just to think that is a similar process that you have to follow, and we are going to talk about this. Then to understand the difference between economic and financial appraisal of projects. So just to start with this, the main difference between economic and financial is one considers the whole cost and benefits, sometimes not really in monetary terms, but the financial just focuses on the money, so how you are going to deliver the project. Okay? Then we are going to talk about how to value cost and benefits. So this is something a little bit complicated sometimes in some projects. Also to test your ability to interpret economic and financial indicators. We are going to talk about economic and financial indicators, and then the importance of discount rates. Okay, so this has to do with the value, with the time value of money. So let's start with the first point. So something that I want to start with is with this, with the relationship between policies, portfolios, programs, projects, to outputs and outcomes that it's included in the Green Book. So this is one of the first figures that you have there. And the idea is that the Green Book is focused on, it can be applied to anything. It could be policies, could be portfolios, could be programs, or could be projects. So it is information, general information about all those scopes. But the idea is that to come up with outputs and outcomes, and then how you measure those outcomes are based on benefits and costs and risk of the project. So something that I think it was not completely clear also in the last lecture was the difference between outputs and outcomes. So as you can see here, they are different. You have first the outputs and then the outcomes. So I just want to give you like two simple examples about the outcomes and outputs. So when you are talking about the outputs, it's just the quantity of product or services that you produce, and the outputs leads to outcomes. So that is the impact of those product or services. So just to give you an example, if people are trying to go from point A to point B, you have different options to make it happen, so that you can build a bridge from point A to point B, you can build a road, or you can maybe build a tunnel. So it's the same, like you're going to get from point A to point B. So in this case, depending on the option that you are deciding, you are going to have a bridge, a tunnel, or a road, and that is going to be the output of the project. So the output is going to be your bridge. So this is the bridge, and this is what I built. So this is the outcome, the output of my project. And then the outcome is going to be the benefits of people moving from point A to point B. So it is, maybe they are commuting, the commuting time is less, maybe you increase the productivity in point B, and that is what you wanted to do. So the difference is, one is just the product, the result of the project, and the other one is the benefit that product brings to in this case, to the society, right? So here we have just, other example, quick example is, for instance, you can have a project to train teachers, and let's say that the project is to bring the training to 100 teachers, like primary school teachers. And then the outcome is going to be that you are going to have 100 teachers trained for giving classes. That's the output, that's the result. But then the outcome is going to be the benefits of doing that. So these 100 teachers are going to educate like maybe 2,000 students, and then those 2,000 students are going to have a higher level of education, and it's going to be easier for them to get a job. Okay, so that is the outcome of this project. So here you have just some examples. That one is more focused on the services and products produced, and the other one is more the benefits that you are bringing with those outputs. Also, this is something that we were talking about last lecture, the scope of the strategy programs and projects. So we were talking about this one, like the purpose is a little bit different. So we were talking about projects is kind of short term, then programs is medium term, and strategy is long term. So as I was telling you the last time, like could be like generally could be like 1 year for projects, 3 years for programs, and 5 years for strategy. But this is just like a representative picture of this. Depending on the project, you can have like really, really huge projects that it's going to take maybe 10 years to develop the project. Then if it's part of a program, that could be like a multi-generational program that could take maybe 20 years. And the strategy is for, I don't know, like to get from here to 2050. Like for instance, if we are talking about the climate change, a lot of the strategies, a lot of the strategical interventions are thought based on to get something in 2050. Of course, you need to monitor and evaluate the progress of those interventions, but that is just like the difference between the projects, programs, and strategies, or sometimes portfolios. And also this one is really important. So as I was telling you, the Green Book targets not just projects, but also targets different programs, different scopes, the programs, and also including policies. So I don't know if you remember this one, that is the ROMEF policy development cycle. So in order to create a policy, also you can apply this business case, and you need to follow this process. So you have the rationale. So in this case, is like the strategic idea, the need, like why do you need a new policy? So what is the problem? This is what we were talking last time. So it is like, what is the problem? What is the cause of the problem? What is the impact of that problem? And then how if you solve that problem, how you can benefit from it? And then what you need to do to solve the problem. So that is just like the idea, like the general idea of the problem and how you can solve it. Then you need to define the objectives. And something that is really interesting here is that we were talking about these two aspects in the last lecture, but now we are going to talk about appraisal. So the appraisal and monitoring and evaluation and feedback. So something that is really interesting here is that we have two words that are usually used indistinctively. So we have appraisal and evaluation. So appraisal, and I'm going to read this, comes from the Green Book. Okay, so this is appraisal is the process of assessing the cost, benefits, and risk of alternative ways to meet specific objectives. It helps decision makers to understand the potential effects, trade-offs, and overall impact of options by providing an objective evidence base for decision making. So here the key points is that is focused on cost, benefits, and risks. Okay, so here you are assessing. First, you need to identify the cost, the benefits, and the risk of a project or a proposal. And then you need to say how they are contributing to the specific objectives. So the main focus here is cost, benefits, and risk. And then the definition of evaluation in the Green Book. So it is a systematic assessment of an intervention's design, implementation, and outcomes. So both monitoring and evaluation should be considered before, during, and after implementation. So in this case, you were kind of right about the evaluation. So this is the process of assessing the progress of the intervention. But appraisal is more focused on the cost, benefits, and risk of a potential solution, right? So something also important here is that evaluation is an ongoing process. So you can evaluate before, during, and after the implementation of this intervention or this project. So you can evaluate how it was designed, if it's progressing well, And then, after the project was implemented, you cannot conduct an appraisal analysis anymore. So you have to focus on evaluating the outcomes of that implementation. Another important diagram here is the 5-case model. This one is also part of the Green Book. So here we have the strategic analysis, the economic analysis, financial analysis, commercial analysis, and management analysis. So that is, when you include a business case, when you are developing a business case, you have to cover all these different analyses of different options, okay? Last lecture, we were talking about the strategic part, the strategic analysis of the business case. So in order to answer this kind of question, so what is the case for change, including the rationale for the intervention, then what is the current situation, and what is to be done if you, like, remember that we were talking about you are in a specific state, or the system is in a specific state, and then you have another state that you want to transition to that state to improve something, and then what you need to do to get to that state. What outcomes are expected, and how do these fit with wider, well, in this case, because it's the Green Book, it's more focused on the government part, so it's how these fit with wider government policies and objectives. And for that part, for the strategic part, remember that the idea is to provide a general picture of what is the problem, what are the potential benefits if you solve that problem, then what you need to do, so what are the interventions to solve the problem, and then once you identify potential interventions, you have to provide information about what is needed to implement that potential solution. So if it's just the way you are going to change the way the things are done, or if you need to build new assets, so if you need more infrastructure or new systems or new equipment to develop that solution. And remember that the general idea for this one is that it's like the elevator pitch. So it is like you need to provide to decision makers or the investors like a general picture of what is the problem, the benefits, the potential solutions, and what implied that solution. So it is like to make them think about if it's worth investing in this project or not. And it has to be really concise and really clear, okay? So that is in terms of the strategic part. And for this part of the lecture, we are going to focus on the economic and financial analysis. So we need to answer this question. So what is the net value to society or the social value of the intervention compared to continuing with business as usual? We are going to talk about the business as usual case. So it is similar to what I was telling you. So you have the current state, and then if you continue with that, it's going to be the same, so there's not going to be any change. And then you have to compare your potential options, your potential solutions with the business case. Then which options reflect the optimal net value to society? We are going to talk about how to do this. And then what are the risks, their cost, and how they are best managed. In this case, we are going to focus on the cost and benefits. And in the next lecture, next week, we are going to talk about risks. Okay, so we are going to have a full lecture about risk management, how to identify risks, how to evaluate those risks, and how to deal with those risks. So in this lecture, we're going to focus more on the cost and benefits. And then the financial analysis focuses more on the impact of the different interventions to the budget of the, well, in this case, the public sector, because it's from the Green Book, but it's on the budget. And they consider the cash flow, so the capital and revenue. So as I was telling you, we are going to talk a little bit more about this, but the general picture is the difference between economic and financial is that economic focuses, it's broader, it focuses more on the cost, all the costs and all the potential benefits, and the financial is more like in terms of money, like if you are going to have enough money to run the project. Like even if the benefits are really, really good, if you don't have the money, you cannot run the project, right? So it is more like, okay, how we are going to get the money, and if we are going to have enough money to finish the project. So within the appraisal and evaluation process of different projects, you have something that is called the project options analysis. And in the previous lecture, also I was telling you that part of the structure of a business case, you have to consider the options analysis. So for this one, we are going to focus more on this part. So the intervention and the potential solutions. So this is just a general picture. You come with a list of different options, and then you have to evaluate. You have to appraise those options. You have to identify the cost and benefits of different options, and then you need to define which one is better than others. So you are going to find sometimes that the project appraisal process and the options analysis is used interchangeably, so it is the same concept. And I'm going to explain to you what is this process. So the general idea is that you have a long list. So based on the identification of the problem and the benefits, you are proposing a list of different solutions, potential solutions. So you're going to have a long list of different solutions. You have to think about different perspectives. So like demand side or supply side, or if you have to change regulation, or if you want to build more infrastructure, or like different potential options, how you can solve this problem, right? Sorry. So then you're going to have a long list of different options, and then you have to select from those options a short list of options. And that short list of options is going to, then you need to analyze those short list options based on the cost-benefit analysis and the cost-effective analysis. So those are the two main tools that you use to decide which one is better than the other option. And something that is important is that the cost-effectiveness analysis is not really used in a lot of projects, so it is not really common. This one focuses more on the outcome. So it is more on the outcome and specific parts of the analysis. So it is not really used here in Australia, and I think that also in the UK they focus more on the cost-benefit analysis. So we are going to spend more time on the cost-benefit analysis. And just to give you a quick example about what is the cost-effectiveness analysis. So here, let's say that we have two options: one yacht, and the other one is just a sailing boat. And then here you have the option one is the capacity, 12 people, 6 berths. So that is where people can sleep inside the boat. Then the speed is 30 knots, and the cost is $1.2 million. Then the option two is a little bit smaller. It has capacity of 6 people, 4 berths. The speed is based on the wind, so it's depending on the wind, and the cost is $900,000. Okay. So if you have a look just at the cost, so in the cost-effective analysis, it's like they provide the same service or the same outcome, so to move from one place to another. But if you focus just on the cost, you are going to choose option 2, right? Because it's cheaper. Then if you focus on the benefit that it provides, that is let's say that is the berths, like how many people can sleep there, and based on how much you are paying, In this case, for option 1 is going to be 1.2 million divided by 6 birds. So it's going to be 200,000 per bird. And option 2 is going to be 900 divided by 4, so that is $225,000 per bird. So in this case, you are going to choose option 1. Just focus on that. So you just focus on the outcome, like the specific outcome that you are looking at. Okay, but if you focus on the capacity, that is going to be different. So if you are paying for capacity, in this case, you are going to choose option 1 because it has more capacity. So it is like a focused approach of the benefits that the different options can provide. But it is not really used. It is maybe used just in defense and also when the outcomes are similar. So sometimes it's difficult to compare different projects to deliver the same outcome. But when it's really, really evident, you can use this approach, but it's not really common. So we are going to focus on the cost-benefit analysis, okay? And that is actually the one that you have in a lot of the documentation in Australia. So this is the options analysis process. Also, this one comes from the Green Book. So you have the strategic case. This is also called the need for change. That is the one that we were talking about last lecture. Then you have the long list analysis, the short list appraisal, the preferred option, and monitoring and evaluation. So the same, as I was telling you, you have the problem, then you have a list of options, how to solve that problem. And what you want to do is, okay, you have all those different options. You need to analyze those options so you can come up with a short list of options, the best options. And then from that short list of options, you want the best one. Maybe it could be 2, but usually it's just 1. So it's like you want the best option of that one. And then you need to monitor and evaluate how it's performing, that solution. So how do we do this? Well, this is what we're going to talk about. So then you have the long list analysis, right? So the purpose of this long list analysis is to come from the long list to the short list. And all the short list options have to be viable options, okay? Then at the beginning, when you want to come from the long list to the short list, it's going to be a general appraisal of the different options, and it's going to be based on the information available that you have at that moment. And usually you don't have to be really, really accurate in that first analysis, but you can use these values as ranges. So you have to identify the benefits and the cost of the different options, and could be in ranges. It doesn't have to be like really, really accurate, but it has to have an idea about the cost and benefits and which one is better in terms of those costs and benefits. And then as you go through the process, probably you are going to have more access to reliable information, and you can give more accurate values. And the only thing is like, why do you think that we have to do this? Like not provide like all the details super accurate for the decide between the long list and the short list. Can anyone think about why it is just like a general picture instead of a super precise analysis with all the numbers? Okay, so imagine that you have like, I don't know, like 20 options, and you have to come up with the numbers for those 20 options. Can take a long time, but also can take a lot of money. So you need resources. You need people who are doing that analysis, right? So you need to pay them. So it's a lot of resources in terms of time and money. So that is why you have to provide like a general picture of the cost and benefits. And then based on that, you have to select a short list. And then for this short list, you have to provide more accurate information about these different options. And the idea is that you have to provide the cost and benefits for the lifetime of the proposal. So let's say that we are talking about a bridge. So a bridge, like for, well, really, really huge bridges, a major infrastructure projects, usually the lifetime of the proposal is like 100 years. But if we are talking about buildings, in the infrastructure sector also, like buildings normally is for 60 years, right? So that is the lifetime of the proposal. And remember that we were talking about the lifetime of the project, but also the lifetime of the different outcomes, the different, different products and services. So in this case, the product is going to be the building. So the building is going to be there for like 60 years around. So it's going to take a little bit to build, then the operation of the building, and then the deconstruction of the building. So you need to consider all that life cycle, not just the life cycle of the project, but the life cycle of the product that you are developing. Then for other things, it could be less, could be like 20 years, so depending on the project that you are developing. But for infrastructure projects, it's usually 60 years. And only if you are talking about really big projects, it's like around 100, 120 years. Then you have to provide a short list. All of them have to be viable at this point, and they have to be directly linked with the objectives. And remember that these objectives are SMART. So are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So you have to provide information about how the different options are contributing to the objectives of the program, the project. Then these options are going to differ in time, risk, cost, and benefits, and they have to be compared with a base case scenario option, or sometimes they call it the do minimum option. We are going to talk a little bit more about this one during the lecture, but all the options have to be compared with a reference point, okay? And then the idea is that you have a short list of options, the most suitable ones, and then you have to choose one of those options, so the best one, to try to solve the problem with the more benefits. So the idea or the focus of the business case process and the appraisal process is to identify and define options, to prioritize these options, and to try to choose the best one. So here is just like a representation of these options. So you have different options. You have the different benefits, the different costs, and the different risks for each one of these options. And then based on that, you need to define, like, you need to choose one of them. So which one is the best? And based on these three criteria, right? So in this case, it's just text. So it is, you cannot really define which one is best because it's just text, but we need to use numbers. So in this case, we are going to focus on the economic analysis and the financial analysis of the different options. So you need to put some numbers there. It is good at the beginning, you are going to have just like an idea, a general idea about the benefits, the risk, the cost. But at this point, to choose one of those, you need to be sure that the numbers are correct and that you are choosing the best one based on the available information at that point. And then, well, the last point is monitoring and evaluation of these options. So monitoring is the collection of data both during and after the implementation. And based on that data, you can evaluate the progress of the intervention and also the effectiveness of that intervention. So this evaluation process focuses on if or how far the intervention is working or has worked as expected, if the cost and benefits were as anticipated, then where there were significant unexpected consequences, how it was implemented, and if changes were made. If changes were made, why they were made. And that's it. So this is the main difference between appraisal and evaluation. So the evaluation focuses on how you are, like how well the intervention is progressing, or how bad. Sometimes is the appraisal was not correct, and maybe you didn't consider a lot of potential risks, and they came, and now you have to deal with a different way of solving this problem, so it is out of the scope. But one of the important things here that I want to talk about is the relationship between the Green Book and the way things are done in Australia, right? So someone was saying that it is more focused on the UK. Like, I mean, it's of course is the case. So the Green Book is the process that they follow in the UK. However, you can see that in the documents here in Australia, like for instance in the government of Queensland, the government of New South Wales, or the government of Victoria, they use this 5-dimension analysis in pretty much all the documents that they are talking about the business case, or how to develop a business case. So remember this options analysis process, or the appraisal process. So it has these stages, and this comes from the Green Book. So you have the strategic case, the strategic analysis, the needs, then the long list, the short list, the preferred option, and then monitoring and evaluation. This comes from the Green Book. And now let's analyze what includes in the government of New South Wales, how to develop a business case for the government of New South Wales. So here we have the 3 stages for the business case. So we have the problem definition that focuses on the needs analysis and confirmation. Then the strategic business case, that this is the option analysis, that this one includes the long list, the short list. Then the stage 2 is the option selection, and this one includes from the short list how you're going to choose the best option, and then updates and revisions to the business case. So as you see, the Green Book is the base of a lot of the documents that the different state governments are using here in Australia. So the Green Book is the base. So then they take that Green Book and then they make some adjustments based on the conditions of the different state or the country, and they produce their own documents with that base. Pretty much a lot of the documents in UK are the base for documents in Australia. So yeah, but as you can see, it's like similar, the same process, just different words, different wording there, but it's the same objective. So the same, last time we were talking about the business case in the government of Victoria, but it's like the same. It's really, really similar, just with different words, but the process is the same. So here we have the needs analysis and confirmation. That is what we were talking about the last lecture. And now we have the options analysis and the option selection. So this is stage 1 and stage 2 of the business case. And then let's go through the process that the government of New South Wales is asking to develop a business case, right? So here we have the stage 0. So this is the problem definition. And as you can see, it's really similar to what we were talking about last lecture. So you have define the business need, challenge, or opportunity, define the objective of the intervention, define the strategic context and alignment with priorities and outcomes, understand benefits and risk and how these link to key performance indicators, identify relevant stakeholders, identify strategic responses and interventions to the problem, and provide high-level cost estimates. So this part of the project is the strategic case, the strategic analysis, that is the same that we were talking about last lecture is what is the problem, what are the benefits if you solve that problem, how you can solve the problem, and just an estimate of what that potential solutions are going to, what do you need to implement those potential solutions. So these are the first 7 steps in the development of a business case from the government of New South Wales. And then let's focus now on the second part. So this is stage 1 of the business case. And what they propose in each one of the stages is to revise what has been done in the previous stage as a first step. So here we have step 8 is the review of case for change. So if all the problems, the benefits, and the potential solutions were identified correctly, so you have a look at those, you confirm that they were okay, and then you go to the next step. So here we have the cost-benefit analysis and the financial analysis. Okay, so in this case, it's the economic analysis and the financial analysis. So as you see, it's the same as in the Green Book, just with different names. It's economic analysis and financial analysis. And here is how you have to do it. The same, you have the long list and you want to come to a short list. So for doing that, you have step 10, 11, and 12. So you have to complete an initial cost-benefit analysis, evaluate value for money, then calculate the benefit-cost ratio and the net present value. We are going to talk about these ones later, but you have to do that. Then you have to conduct a financial appraisal, evaluate the financial viability, calculate the net present value again for the cash flows to the entity, and then a financial impact assessment. Evaluate the financial impact, project impact on key financial measures. The difference between the financial appraisal and the financial impact assessment is that in the financial appraisal is the cost and revenues, the cash flow of the project, and the financial impact assessment includes the comparison between the different options. So you come up with the numbers for one option, that is the financial appraisal, and then in the financial impact assessment, you combine of those different options and you compare them together to see which one is going to cost more for the government. Okay? But as you can see, it's really similar. So it is, you have the long list, like a lot of different options, and you want to come up with a short list of options. So for that, you need to run some analysis. And then in the next stage, that is the full business case, is the same. You want to come from the short list to the preferred option. You need to choose one option. And they say that, like as I was telling you, they suggest to revise the previous steps to the outcome of the previous step, that is the initial cost-benefit analysis and the initial financial appraisal of the long list. And then once you confirm that they are okay, you go to the step 15, 17, and 18. That in this case is the full economic appraisal and the full financial appraisal of the short list options. So it is basically the same, like you need to run it, but with more accurate data, with more analysis, and with more information. So the policy makers or the decision makers can make a better informed decision, okay? And well, let's talk about the economic appraisal. So this one is going to be really interesting. Here we need to put some numbers. Sometimes it's difficult to get those numbers, but I'm just going to give you an idea about what you have to consider. So for the economic appraisal, we have to consider the cost and benefits of the project or the different options, right? So this is just an idea, and then you have to compare which one is has more weight than the other. And then based on that comparison, you can decide if the option is viable or not. So this is the formal definition. So the cost-benefit analysis is a holistic appraisal method that estimates the economic, social, environmental, and cultural costs and benefits of an initiative and expresses them in monetary terms. So here you have to provide the numbers for all the costs and benefits. So this is sometimes the tricky part. The cost-benefit analysis measures the cost and benefits attributable to an initiative relative to a business-as-usual situation without the proposed initiative. So this is called the base case. Okay, so the key outputs of the cost-benefit analysis is the benefit-cost ratio and the net present value. So these are the acronyms of this. We are going to talk about these ones, how to estimate them. Well, actually, I think that probably in other subjects, you have more in detail how to estimate these ones. So I'm going to assume that you have a knowledge about this one, but if not, just try to have a look at these equations, these estimations, and let me know if you have any question about them. Okay, so this is just a simple example of how you can conduct a cost-benefit analysis. So this is a project. Let's say that is a project, a fictional project. So the objective is to improve health outcomes through meeting a service delivery need for renal dialysis health services in local health district. Actually, this one comes from the government of New South Wales. So imagine that you have a lot of different options, and you always need a base case. So in this case, it's not change. So you are doing the things exactly the same as they have been done so far. So there is no change, there is no investment, and then that is going to be your point of reference. That is going to be your reference scenario. So here you see that, well, you are not going to have any benefits. You are not going to have any cost because no investment or no additional investment is needed. So your net present value is going to be 0, and your benefit cost ratio is going to be 0, right? So you don't have anything. And then you have option 1, option 2, option 3, until option 20. So this is the long list of options. And then you need to estimate these numbers. You need to estimate the benefits. You need to put a number in monetary terms of these benefits, and then a value of the cost, and say like, okay, this is the present value of the benefits, this is the present value of cost, and then based on those two numbers, you have to estimate the net present value. So that one basically is just the difference between the benefits and cost, and then the benefit cost ratio, that is the benefits divided by cost, and then you are going to have those two numbers, right? So you are going to have this, and then you need to choose which ones of these options are viable. So can you tell me which ones are viable from here? So the idea is, if you have a net present value above 0, that means that it's viable. And also if you have a benefit cost ratio above 1, that means that the options are viable, but it is not enough to say that you can accept that option, okay? So it is just to come from the long list to the short list. But this is just like the general idea. So this is just a simple example of what you're going to see and how you're going to decide between the long list and the short list. So, for instance, this one, the option 2, regulatory option, is going to cost $3 million, and it's going to give benefits estimated in $15 million. So if you're going to have a 15 million difference negative, so that means that it is not a good option. You are going to have more cost than benefits, so you don't go for that option. Then this comes also from the guidelines from the government of New South Wales. So this is the key milestone in a cost-benefit analysis process. If you go to the guidelines that they have available in their website, it is a lot of detail for each one of these steps. So actually they define, I think, like 8 or 9 steps, and they explain in detail how to run a cost-benefit analysis, and it has a lot of different information and different assumptions. So you can go through this, but this is just like a general picture of what you need to consider, right? So you need to identify, forecast, and value benefits and costs over an adequate evaluation period. So remember that for this, you need to consider the lifetime of the product or service that you are providing. Then you need to identify the qualitative cost and benefits and distributional impacts. We're going to talk about these ones at the end of the lecture, but sometimes it's difficult to quantify or to put numbers in some benefits. Not usually in cost, but in some benefits, it is difficult to put numbers there. But anyway, you have to report them. You have to find a way of maybe qualitatively say that this could be a benefit if you implement the project. Then you have to assess risk and test sensitivities, and then assess net benefits and reporting the results of the analysis. This part, the C part, this section, we are going to talk about that in the next lecture, so how to manage risks, how to identify, manage, and report risks. But sometimes they also have a value link to the risk, right? So the first point is to define the business case, actually, the base case. So here they don't consider it as part of the milestones, but it's the first thing that you have to do. You have to have a reference point. So the thing that we were saying the other day is you have the current situation, and you can assume that nothing is going to change from the current situation, and you are not going to spend more money. You are just going to keep doing the same way you are doing things, and that is going to be your business as usual case, or sometimes it's called the base case. So this is a projection of cost and benefits if none of the options proceed. So it is like if you just stay the same. Then this is a business as usual situation, as I was telling you. Then the business case is, in other words, is a continuation of current quantity and quality of services, including plant maintenance and usage. So this means that you don't require additional investment just to keep it running like that. So sometimes you are going to see a do nothing option or do nothing scenario. But something that is important is, I think that is kind of a misunderstanding sometimes of do nothing, because the do nothing could be understood sometimes as you just stop doing things, so you don't do anything anymore. But that is not the case. Usually the base case is like you don't spend more money, so you just don't like provide additional money to the project, so it is running exactly the same way. So you are committed to quantity and quality of service or products provided, and then you have to keep that quality and quantity. So you already have a budget for that. The idea is that you are not investing more to improve the quality or the quantity of those services. You just keep it like that. So that is why you are going to have the spend nothing scenario that is more in the government of New South Wales, or you have the do nothing scenario in a lot of other situations, right? But just think about that, like the do nothing is in reality do nothing additional to what you are doing. And then the do minimum scenario is when you have a commitment to or unavoidable need for some further investment to keep the current services standards, to keep services or infrastructure safe and operational, or meet legislative requirements. So in this case, you consider that are going to be some changes in the future, and you need to adapt to those changes in the future. So you can provide exactly the same quality and quantity of the service or product that you are providing at this moment. So usually you need to compare all your options with the do minimum scenario. So you have a requirement of bringing, well, more in the government. If you are in the government, you need to keep the service running with a certain level of quality, right? So to keep that quality, you already have some fundings, but maybe you require a little bit more just to keep it the same way. And that is going to be your base case. So that is you're going to compare all your options with that case. So just to give you some examples of what could be the base case for different initiatives. So here we have the capital or infrastructure. So here the idea is that you don't need a new infrastructure built unless already funded and committed. So you already have the project and the funding for that infrastructure. And to keep it running, you are not looking for any additional funding. You already have one. Then existing infrastructure maintained according to current funding commitments or at the minimum level to remain safe and operating. So to remain safe and operating means that if you feel that there is something that is risky and it's maybe could have a negative impact in the health of the population, you need to do something to keep it safe. But that is like the minimum that you are expecting. Yeah. Then in some recurring initiatives, you have funded and committed programs continue. They run the same. Then regulations, for instance, you have existing acts, regulation, and other instruments continue subject to sunset provisions. Sometimes for regulation it's a little bit more complicated because you already have objectives and you have to comply with those objectives. So they require a revision period, like sometimes 1 year, sometimes 3 years, sometimes 5 years, depending on the regulation. But the idea is that you have to comply with the objective, not that much with the funding. It's just more the objective that you have. The most common one probably is the asset replacement. So here the idea is that the base case may involve deferral or replacement and continued maintenance. So this is part of the operations and maintenance of buildings or infrastructure. And the end-of-life asset typically replaced if required to remain safe and operating. So like, yeah, it is basically refurbishing of things or just to keep them operating. Then one important aspect of cost and benefits and the cost-benefit analysis is the social value. So here the appraisal of social value includes not just the market effects, so not just cost and benefits of the market, but also the welfare and well-being of the population. This is when it comes a little bit difficult to value the benefits and cost, like external cost of the different options. But for the government, it's really important. So you need to consider this social value instead of just monetary value, right? So this one includes the environmental cost and benefits, cultural, health, social care, justice, security effects, and you have to consider all those cost and benefits. At the end also, we are going to talk a little bit about how you can consider that if you don't have enough information, but well. These are just some examples of cost and benefits in different sectors. So you have the infrastructure sector, the education, and the court infrastructure. So the costs are going to be really similar. So it's going to be the construction cost and the maintenance, operations and maintenance cost. Those are the main ones. But when we are talking about benefits, it's going to be a little bit different for each one of the sectors. So here you can see that, just as an example, is in roads, you have the travel time savings. You need to estimate how you can do that. So also we are going to talk about that. Then a lower vehicle cost, reduced accidents, reduction in emissions. So those are benefits that you need to put a number on and then compare the cost and benefits. Then in education, for instance, the benefit is the benefits to students, increase future productivity and earnings. So this one is similar to what I was telling you at the beginning of the lecture with the example of outcomes and outputs. So this is the outcome is more focused on the benefits. And if we talk about core infrastructure, you can see the benefits are the reduced core delays and the avoided capital operating and maintenance cost. Okay? So these are just examples of different sectors, but we are going to talk about the common cost categories, and that you are going to find these ones in pretty much all the projects. So this is more like a general view of the different costs. And you can classify, if you are checking a project or if you are developing a business case, you need to consider, you need to think about these costs and how you can include them in your economic appraisal, okay? So here we have the capital cost. These are the capital cost of new assets, the capital cost of asset replacement, and major periodic maintenance or refurbishment costs. These are major because usually the recurring costs or the operating and maintenance costs are included in the next one, that is just minor maintenance and refurbishment costs. So the recurring costs sometimes, just quick, in the first one, the capital cost, you are going to see that sometimes they are called CAPEX, so capital expenditures. So just to remember that. And the next one, that is the current cost, usually are called the operating expenditures, the operation expenditures. So those are the two main ones that we are going to see pretty much in all the projects, right? So in recurring costs, you have the agency salaries and wages and labor on cost, accommodation expenses, operating and maintenance costs, including subcontracted external labor or rented capital. So capital costs usually are at the beginning of the project, and the recurring costs are the costs that you're going to have throughout the development of the project, right? Then you have regulatory costs like the administrative and compliance costs for regulated entities, cost to government agencies in administering the regulation, reduce consumer surplus from restrictions on competition or choice, and well, you can read the rest of them. Then auxiliary, you're going to have also these ones in a lot of infrastructure projects. So these are some costs, like external costs that you have around the construction. Like for instance, if you have disruptions, you have to consider these costs as auxiliary costs. And also, and also the other costs that are brought to community that sometimes is a little bit difficult to evaluate. That is the noise, congestion, pollution, carbon emissions, and reduction in visual amenity. So sometimes it's difficult to put a value on this type of cost, but what you have to do basically is, well, you can do a couple of things. You can compare them with previous projects, similar projects, or you can use literature on the topic to see what they have done, how they can estimate those costs, and you can refer to those reports. But well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this. Then the benefits. These are also common categories of benefits. These are just the common ones. You are going to have probably a lot of other ones, depending on the project. And also during today's tutorial, we are going to talk about a framework that you can use for identifying and defining benefits in different categories, right? But well, these ones are the most common ones. So we have saving or avoided cost. So these are reductions in public or private expenditure due to an initiative. Then you have the government revenue. So that is basically how the government get the revenue based on taxes. Then the consumer surplus. So here the surplus is like what someone is willing to pay something, and the surplus is if they are receiving more than what they are expecting. So here we have the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So if they are receiving more than what they were expecting. Then labor surplus, the same. If you can increase the wages or if you can provide more jobs to people, you are going to see probably this benefit in a lot of the projects that they can increase or they can provide more jobs to local people. Then benefits to the broader community. Well, you have a bunch of those, like the benefits of public services, like emergency services, health and education services, public transport. Also, you have lower pollution, reduced congestion, and a lot of other ones, right? And then the residual value. So that is when you have an asset, an infrastructure project, then by the end of the life cycle, it still has some value at the end. Like let's say that for a building is going to be 60 years. At the end of the life cycle, you are going to have some elements of the structure that you can reuse for other things. So it's going to have a residual value. It's going to have some value at the end of the life cycle, even if you say that it's outside of the scope of the project, right? At the end, it's going to have some benefits. So here is the conceptual model of the cost and benefits. So as I was telling you at the beginning, you are expecting to have a lot of expenditures in capital, so in infrastructure, systems, or the equipment that you need. So you are going to have a big expense there. And then you are going to have the operational expenses, operational maintenance expenses that are going to run throughout the project, throughout the years. And then you are expecting some benefits, right? So in this case, the costs are going to be negative. We consider as negative because it's an expenditure, and the benefits positive. And then you have to compare them. So throughout the time, it's going to be different. So this is the cumulative curve of cash flow. So you're going to have a lot of expenditures at the beginning. Then you're going to receive some benefits. Some benefits you're going to reach at some point each with the cumulative benefits are the same as the cumulative cost. And then you are going to, or at least you are expecting to have more benefits than costs, right? But in the cost-benefit analysis, you have to consider also the value for money. So for that, actually, let me go through this one. So the general idea of value for money is that the money that you have now, exactly the same amount of money, is not going to be the same in a few years. Because if we consider inflation, you are going to be able to buy less in the future with exactly the same amount of money, right? So for that, you have to consider that the present value, so the value of the money now, if you were going to use it in the future, is going to be less than in the future. So to estimate this one, you need to divide the future value by the discount rate. So 1 plus discount rate, and then you need to consider a number of periods. So this is just an example. So this comes actually from the Green Book, and it's like in nominal terms, that is if you don't consider inflation, you have the 1,000 pounds. It's going to be the same in all the years, right? So you have 1,000 pounds, and then next year you're going to have 1,000 pounds, and it's going to be the same all the time. But in reality, because of inflation, you're going to be able to buy less things in the future. So if you consider the real terms, and if you come with the present value, you're going to see that the value of your money in the future is going to be reduced. So by how much? Well, it depends on the discount rate. So here you can see it is not going to be 1,000 pounds in year 5, it's going to be 906. And that depends on the discount rate. So depending on the discount rate that you are using, the value of your money is going to be reduced by some extent in the future. By how much? This is the important graphic here. So if you have 0, if the discount rate is 0, so that means that you are not considering inflation, and the value of your money is going to be the same always, right? So you are going to have the 100% all the time throughout the years. But if you consider a 5% discount rate, the value of your money is going to be reduced by the purple curve. And if you increase the discount rate by, like, let's say, like the blue one that is 15%, you can see that your money is going to have a really low value by the end of the period. So you're going to be able to buy so much less than now. So the general idea of that is like you prefer to buy now and to have the benefits now than in the future, because in the future you don't know what is going to happen. So it is really risky. So you prefer, now you have more certainty, and now you want the benefits. Like the benefits now are so much better than the benefits in the future because you don't know what is going to happen, right? So this is the general formula to bring the cost and the benefits of the project in the future to the present value, right? To the money now. So your curve is going to be a little bit different if you consider the inflation, right? So instead of the first one that we had the cumulative cash flow, with the discount rate is going to be a little bit different. So depending on the discount rate that you are using, that is going to be lower or higher. And here are the formulas. Just here, something important that you have to consider is have a look when you are analyzing business cases or where you are developing business cases, check the discount rate that they are asking you to consider. Because more for the government, if you are applying, if you send a proposal to the government and they consider a social discount rate of usually 7%. So if they consider a discount rate of 7%, you are going to have some implications. But if they ask you to consider a discount rate of 4%, that is going to be beneficial for your project. Okay, and depending on the government and depending on the place, that one is going to be different. I remember that for the US, a few years ago, it was 3%, so that was really good. But in Mexico, for instance, it's 10%. So the social discount rate is 10%. So depending on the country and depending on the situation, you need to be aware of this one. And usually for the business cases, we are going to talk about that one in the next lecture, but usually for the business cases, you need to run a sensitivity analysis with different discount rates. So the one that they are asking you, 7% usually, then you run one at 4% and you run one at 10, 12% to see what is the impact of the discount rate. So here are the financial indicators that we use for economic and financial appraisal. So we have the present value, the one that I showed you, and then the net present value is just the present value of the benefits minus the present value of the cost. And for the benefit cost ratio, you just need to divide the sum of the present value of the benefits divided by the present value of the cost. And you're going to have the numbers that we saw at the beginning. And this is using the discount rate. So let's have just a couple of exercises. So please go, this is one exercise. This is the refurbishment required of a building of 10 years after construction. Then you have an estimated cost of refurbishment in today's dollars of 1 million. And then you have a real discount rate of 3.5 per annum. So what is the future value of the refurbishment and what is the present value of the refurbishment? So this is the answer for the first one. So it's $1 million, $1 million, because the future value is with nominal terms. So future value is $1,000. So we are not considering here the inflation and the discount rate. But for the second one, you have to apply the equation. So you have here that is $1 million divided by 1 plus the discount rate, and we're considering a period of 10 years. So then you have this one. So it was correct in some of the answers here. So here we have year 1, activity 1, year 1, activity 2, and we have 3 years. And we have the sum of the present value benefits. So here they are already estimated as a present value benefits and the present value cost. So can you tell me what is the benefit cost ratio? So this one is, to remember that we just need to divide the benefits by the cost, and then we are going to have a ratio here. So remember that if it's above 1, that means that the option is viable. So here we have an option, a viable option. And then the last exercise is this one. What is the net present value of this project? So the answer is, yeah, 3,000 after 3 years. So this is really quick. It's just like the difference between the benefits, well, the present value benefits and the sum of the present value benefits and the sum of the present value cost. So yeah, this one I think is really easy. And this is just another simple example of the some options. So here is just with a little bit more of detail about one option, what you can consider as a total benefits, as a total cost, and then based on those costs, you can estimate the net present value and the benefit cost ratio. And here you have these two values. So these two values, the net present value and the benefit cost ratio, are the outputs, the result of the cost benefit analysis. And based on that, you can compare the different options and decide which one is the best one. And remember that these two options are always compared to the base case scenario. So here is just another simple example. So which one do you think that is better in this particular example? Okay, so the net present value is higher and the benefit cost ratio also is higher. So that means that in absolute terms and in relative terms, it is a better option than option 1A. So you have to quantify the cost and benefits. So for that, like some of the examples that you need to quantify is like the number of additional passenger trips on a bus route, the number of tenants moved from a wait list to social housing, average increase in the student test score, decreasing probability of developing diabetes. And there are a lot of different techniques and methods that you can use to forecast and estimate these values. So for that is you have ex post evaluation on the impacts of somewhat comparable initiatives. So here the idea is that you have similar initiatives in the past, and then you can compare the cost and benefits of your project with that project. So it could be something similar. If you are talking about infrastructure, have a look at the infrastructure projects, how they are reporting these costs and benefits, and then you can make an assumption, and you can take those values, or you can extrapolate those values and take them for your project. Then this one is really important. You can go to reports, you can go to the literature, and see how they are doing the things, how they are reporting these costs and benefits. Sometimes they use specific approaches to monetize the value of some benefits. So you can go there and you can see how they are doing it, take it as a reference, and then you can put it in your project. Then ex ante, so this one is like the same, how they are, the first one is ex post, and the third one is ex ante. So ex post means after the project was implemented. So if they are monitoring and evaluating the outcomes, they have to come up with the validity of the cost and benefits, if they were calculated accordingly or not. So you can use those ones. And in the third one is you can use similar reports in the business case to use it as a starting point. Also, you can consider similar values in other countries or in other states or in other parts of the world, and then you just adjust those values based on some elasticities or economic or growth rates. So you just make the adjustment based on the characteristics of the country or the state that you are using as a reference, and the characteristics of the scope of your project. And also you have an expert opinion, so you can conduct surveys, or you can maybe use a workshop with experts to define the money value or the monetary value of the different costs and benefits. So the ideal is to use a combination of these forecasting methods. With that, you are going to have like a more robust number or estimation of your numbers. And you can use also market prices or generic prices if they are available. And if not, as I was telling you, there are some other approaches or other methods that you can use. So you can ask people how much they are willing to pay for a product or service, like a similar one that you are providing. And also, well, you can use, as I was telling you, you can use like available data that is similar to what you are doing and just adjust it to the characteristics of your project. And I think that this one is the last one that I have here. In terms of the socioeconomic analysis, you need to consider the distributional impacts. So sometimes in some projects, you are going to have the benefits not concentrated or not provided for everyone, but it's going to be just concentrated in specific parts. And you have to consider who is paying, so who is the responsible of the cost, and who is receiving the benefits. So maybe the government of Victoria is providing the funds for a project, but in reality, the government of New South Wales, or well, the people from New South Wales is receiving the benefits. So you need to consider also that in your business case and in your economic and financial appraisal. And usually how you do this is by assigning weights to the different costs and benefits. And then you have a more reliable value of who is receiving or who is paying the project and who is receiving the benefits. And well, this one is important. And just here, really quick, the financial appraisal, as I was telling you, the difference between the economic and financial is that the financial focuses on the cash flows. So how the government is going to pay for the project, if they have enough resources, if they consider their revenue, so how they are going to get the money for the project, if it's going to be in from taxes, so they can pay for the project, because at the end they have to complete the project, they cannot just leave it there. Right, so it considers the cash flow, the sensitivity, financial projections, the estimated cost of investment, and financial impact of. So I think that we are going to leave it here. I have just a few more slides. But well, just to give you the general idea, I will continue with this one, but it's the financial appraisal is a different scope. I consider just one part of the economic appraisal. So the economic appraisal is wider than the financial,